The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this installment of the Practice Perfection Education Series. I'm Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, and it's a pleasure to have, again, the privilege of introducing another visionary of oral systemic health. I also want to thank and welcome our underwriter for today's broadcast, Equation. Equation manufactures and distributes a line of xylitol and electrolyte-infused flavored waters, which, to my mind, makes them the world's only water committed to oral systemic health, and therefore the perfect practice perfection partner. Angie Stone, RDH BS, has practiced as a dental assistant, patient care coordinator, clinical hygienist. She was editor-in-chief of the hygiene publication Hygiene Consultant and has been on the faculty of both dental assisting and dental hygiene programs. She is an internationally sought-after speaker, having educated dental professionals in 35 states and 4 countries. Her articles have appeared in a variety of publications, and her research regarding xylitol and the elder population has been published in the peer-reviewed journal Integrative Medicine. Her company, High Life, brings oral care services to seniors in nursing home environments because, as her company's tagline states, they shouldn't die of dirty teeth. In 2012, Angie was awarded the Sunstar RDH Magazine Award of Distinction for her work with xylitol and the geriatric population. Her book, Dare to be a Difference Maker, will be released in December 2013, and we want to congratulate Angie on her book's impending publication. It's her passion and talent for educating dental professionals about the health benefits of xylitol which led us to invite her to speak to us today, and we're so glad she accepted the invitation. Today's event is set to run for approximately 90 minutes. Feel free to submit any questions you have using the question form on your screen. We will do our best to get your questions answered following her presentation. If we are unable to do that, Angie has agreed to respond personally following the presentation. My life and business partner, Virginia Norton, will present today's attendee poll, as well as field your questions during the presentation. This webcast is being recorded, and you will receive a link to it soon. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the stage my friend, Angie Stone. Hello, Angie.
Well, hello, Danny. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It always, when I hear the introduction, I'm just always just humbled because I've been so fortunate to be blessed in this wonderful profession that we call dentistry. And so thank you for even having me here to speak today.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we are likewise blessed and grateful for having you. And as many of our regular listeners know, attendees know, we like to get a feel for who is in attendance for each presentation. And with that, I'm going to ask Virginia, before we get rolling with your presentation, to just roll out our 3 attendee poll questions. And let's begin with that, if we could, Virginia. First question is, what is your profession? If you all would just take a moment to please answer that. Are you a dentist, hygienist, assistant, front office personnel, or other? Other would include medical professional or other healthcare providers. So please take a minute to answer that, and we'll see who's here. Okay, let's see what our results are. Virginia, I'm not seeing the results. Maybe you can share them. Oh, there we are. Very good. Okay, we've got 22% are dentists, 61% are hygienists. That's not surprising, and we're glad to see it because this is so important for the hygiene department. We have 9% dental assistants, 4% front office, and 4% other. Very good. Let's take a look at question number 2. How are you using xylitol in your office currently, if at all? please check all that apply. This is a multiple answer question, by the way, folks. So, are you talking to patients about the benefits of xylitol? Are you referring patients to health food stores to purchase it? Are you providing samples yourself to your patients? Do you sell product in your office, or are you currently doing none of these? Please take a moment and, again, check all that apply. Okay, I think most of the votes are in. What are our results, Virginia? All right, well, excellent. I guess we're largely preaching to the choir here, Angie. 91% are already talking about xylitol, and that's fantastic. We've got well over a third, 43%, are referring patients to health food stores. Over half, 57%, are providing samples. And we have over a third, 39%, currently are offering the products within the office. And nobody is doing nothing. None of the above is zero. That's good to hear. Good to see. All right, let's move on to our final poll question then. What applications of xylitol do you see being helpful to your practice? And again, you can check more than one here. Do you see it as helping to treat medium to high caries risk, xerostomia, dry mouth? For plaque control, none of the above, or do you have something else in mind, perhaps? And if that's the case, then please be sure and share with us in the question button. Let's see the results. So for medium to high caries risk, of course, just about everybody sees that as an application. And vast majority also understand, Angie, that it is a treatment for dry mouth. 59, that was 82%. 59% plaque control. And 9% have something else in mind. So again, I invite you to, in the question form, let us know, because that would be great to have a discussion about as well. All right, well, thank you, Virginia. That concludes the poll. With that, take it away, Angie.
Well, again, thank you, Danny, and I want to be sure to thank everyone who's joined on the call with us today. I am a clinician. I've been hanging around in a dental office for coming up on 30 years, and so I can completely understand how our schedules are very busy and a little bit difficult to get to any meeting during the day. So thank you, everyone, for joining the call. And I hope that this is going to be beneficial for you. I'm hoping that you'll take at least one or two little pearls away, if not more than that. But it sounds like a lot of you are already talking about the xylitol and doing some great things. So we're just going to start and roll this out. Please feel free. I think if you have any questions, you can type those into the question box. And as Danny mentioned a few minutes ago, we'll be hopefully addressing those as we go along here. So we're going to begin today with what is xylitol. I've been talking with my patients about xylitol for around 7 years, and that's always obviously the first question. What is xylitol? And it is very easy to tell people what xylitol is. All you need to do is tell them those 4 words in the first bullet point there. It is a natural occurring sugar substitute. As soon as I roll that out of my mouth, a lot of people will come back at me and say, well, I don't like to use artificial sweeteners. Well, xylitol is not artificial, so it's a great sweetener for those people who don't want to use artificial sweeteners. The other thing people often want to know is, how long has xylitol been around? Is it something new? We tend to shy away from things that are new, but I can confidently tell you that xylitol is not new. It was discovered in 1891 by the gentleman you see there on the screen, Mr. Emil Fisher. So 1891 by me is quite some time ago that it was discovered. It's interesting when we think about what xylitol actually is, when we think about the chemical makeup. Xylitol is classified as a sugar alcohol or a polyol. Those two terms are interchangeable. So if someone says polyol, you know they're talking about a sugar alcohol, and vice versa. There are a lot of sugar alcohols. However, xylitol is markedly different from any other sugar alcohols that we know of. There's more sugar alcohols than I have listed on the screen there, but some common ones are sorbitol, maltitol, mannitol. Erythritol is becoming more and more popular. The reason xylitol is different is because it has a different carbon structure. So the diagram you see on the lower left-hand side of the screen is the structure of our sugar alcohols and our carbohydrates. You'll notice there are 6 carbons in that diagram. This is important for us in dentistry because it's these 6 carbon chains that set up the chain of events in the mouth that we as clinicians don't like, meaning demineralization, which can lead to tooth decay, also gingivitis, which we know can lead to periodontal disease. So why this is important and why it happens is when we eat the 6 carbon structures, the bacteria in the mouth, namely the Streptococcus mutan, consumes these 6 carbon structures. They can digest them and use them as a food source. We know that digestion is always followed by secretions. We know the secretions of the bacteria in the mouth are acid. They're sticky, and they're the building blocks for the plaque. So that's how everything gets started, is because we're feeding the bacteria the 6 carbon structures. Look at the structure on the lower right-hand side of the screen. You'll notice there's only 5 carbons in that structure. That's xylitol. And that difference of 1 carbon switches up the whole chain of events in the mouth. When we consume xylitol, the Streptococcus mutan will consume it. They love xylitol. However, they cannot digest it. Without digestion, there's no what? Secretions, right? There's no acid being produced, and there's no stickiness. So what I see as a clinical hygienist when my patients are on a xylitol protocol is that they don't have plaque sticking to their teeth because the bacteria just simply slides off the teeth. That's the magic of xylitol. When we were in cariology class, we were taught that we need 3 things in order to have tooth decay. We need a sugar source, we need acid produced by the bacteria, and we need enamel. And the combination of those 3 things can lead to tooth decay. My general way as a hygienist of having people keep the acid off their teeth is by mechanical disruption. So we're relying on these patients to be able to brush and floss adequately. And we know that the most part of the population do not brush and floss the way we would like them to. But we continually teach them about brushing and flossing, and they oftentimes continually come back looking the same as they did the time before. When, however, I switch up their regimen and add xylitol to it, I am fundamentally taking that bacteria's acid out of the equation, simply by getting xylitol into the mouth. And sometimes that's much easier for people to do than brush and floss like a dental professional wants them to. It's a beautiful thing when the xylitol gets in the mouth and you start to see the plaque sliding off of the teeth. Xylan is extracted from plant fibers. Water and malic acid, that's from apples, are added to extract the xylose. Xylose is the 5-carbon monosaccharide we were just talking about, and then at that point it looks like powdered sugar. Hydrogen is then added, and the result is xylitol, a sweet, crystalline carbohydrate like you see there on the spoon. I'm hoping that all of you have had the chance to taste xylitol just by itself, like you see on the spoon. If you haven't had that opportunity, I really encourage you to get some xylitol and just taste it. And I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised at how very, very similar it is to sugar and how there's no aftertaste. It's important, again, to note that xylitol is not created in a lab. It's found in our plants, fruits, and vegetables, and the average adult consumes several hundred milligrams of xylitol a day just from our diet. Xylitol is also produced in small amounts in our bodies every day. So the point of this slide is just to let us know that xylitol is nothing foreign to our bodies. It's an interesting story how we began to think there might be some dental benefits with xylitol. During World War II, there was a sugar shortage. And Finland knew about xylitol, so they simply began to sweeten their foods with xylitol. After the war, the sugar became available, it was easier to get, and it was cheaper. So the widespread use of the country's xylitol disappeared. When the epidemiologists came through the country of Finland and tracked the decay rates of the population, they noted that there was less decay in the people in Finland than there were in any other countries. They had no idea why that would have happened, but they were able to trace it ultimately back to the country's utilization of the xylitol. Large-scale production of xylitol became practical in 1970. I think this is great because when I'm teaching students, most of the students weren't even born in 1970, so they're like, oh my gosh, this stuff is ancient. The first chewing gum was launched in Finland and the United States in 1975, and they continue to develop more efficient and economical techniques of producing xylitol all the time. Currently, it's corn cobs that are the most abundant source of easily extractable xylan. I think that's fascinating. It's not the corn itself, it's not the kernels, it is the cob and the stalk. And I often get asked, well, if I have an issue with corn, can I safely use xylitol derived from corn cobs? And the answer to that is absolutely you can use the xylitol derived from corn cobs. Reason being is...
Question for you.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Because, you know, corn is called sweet corn. Am I to infer that what makes the kernel sweet is not the xylitol, but some other form, like high fructose corn syrup? What will become that?
I have no idea.
It's pretty interesting, though, because yeah.
That's a great question, and that I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have any information in my brain about that, Danny. But
it's just so ironic because that's, from what I understand, the high fructose corn syrup is some of the most offensive of the sweeteners and additives, or foodstuffs used in our diet today. And yet, all you do is go down a couple of millimeters, and you're dealing with a very healthy sugar source.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are people who can't eat corn. They don't deal with corn very well. Their bodies don't, and that's because there's a protein in the kernels of the corn. But that protein is not cross-linked to the cob or the stalks, so that's why they can safely use the corn cob-derived xylitol. I also get asked a question, mostly by the health food industry, is they're really concerned with anything that comes from genetically modified organisms or GMOs. And I can tell you that all of the sources of the xylitol that the company Clear uses comes from non-GMO certified crops. So that's kind of a question that sometimes will come up as well. Danny, were there any other questions that you can see or anything?
Just a comment in answer to my request that the people that suggested other uses for xylitol. One suggestion was to use it to prevent the transmission of strep bacteria.
That's right. We're going to talk about that.
Okay, I thought we might. All right,
but
thanks
stuff.
for the contribution, listener.
Excellent. So that's what xylitol is. Let's talk about why we like it so much. As a clinical hygienist, my first love of xylitol is because I was seriously seeing my patients' oral health improve. But over these last 7 or so years, I've learned a lot of other really cool things that xylitol is being looked at for. So let's take a look at some of those. Xylitol is as sweet as sugar. It has 40% fewer calories than sugar, which is always a plus. And we can substitute it 1-for-1 in our cooking or our baking. So if you have a recipe that calls for a half a cup of sugar, you can simply use a half a cup of xylitol instead. As I mentioned, we can cook with it, but it's not great for baking things that you're going to put yeast, specifically put yeast into the recipe to get it to rise. The way that yeast makes things rise, like our breads and our cakes, is that the yeast metabolizes the sugar. That gives off a chemical reaction that releases a gas and our foods rise. Yeast cannot metabolize xylitol. So there's no chemical reaction, so there's no rising. But things like banana bread, cupcakes, brownies, cookies, on our fruit, on our cereal, our coffee, our tea, things like that. Xylitol is really great for. And as a side note, people who suffer from thrush do very well in getting rid of that thrush when we put them on a xylitol protocol, because thrush is simply a yeast infection. And yes, if there's going to be any questions about can you use xylitol in other areas of yeast infections, the answer is yes. Xylitol is great for our diabetic population. The glycemic index of our table sugar, which is sucrose, comes in at 83. The glycemic index of xylitol comes in at just 7. So it's amazing, an amazing sweetener for these folks that have diabetes. And I'm telling you that as a dental professional, if you can teach your diabetics about something that they can use safely and sweeten their foods, or if you talk to a mother whose child is diabetic and they struggle being able to have that child eat sweet things, if you turn them on to xylitol, they will never seek out another dental office. So again, changing lives in other ways in addition to dentistry, oral systemic health. This is another way that we can have our patients be overall healthy, is by using xylitol for upper respiratory troubles. The gentleman you see there on the screen is Dr. Lon Jones, and he's the inventor of the clear nasal spray. He was able to reduce the middle ear infections in the children in his practice by 93% when he was putting the nasal spray, 1 drop in each nostril of the children at every diaper change. This is crazy good stuff. I have a whole webinar dedicated to this topic of upper respiratory health of xylitol. Basically, the way it works is the same way it works in the mouth. We have bacteria that come into our body through our nose. They get hung up in the back of the nose. Those bacteria create a biofilm, just like in the mouth. And that biofilm then can become infectious, just like in the mouth, and it can transfer to our middle ears, our sinus, our throat, our lungs, and we get sick. But in the presence of the xylitol in the back of the nose, things can't stick and we remain healthy. It's fascinating. Xylitol, as we've been talking about, has dental benefits as well. It's anti-karyogenic and it has karyostatic properties. In a nutshell, it prevents the bacteria from sticking to the teeth and gums. And as a hygienist, that's my whole mantra in life, is to keep the schmutz off your teeth. I'm from Wisconsin, and schmutz is a technical term up here.
Down here too.
Xylitol also increases bone calcification in old rats. I think this is just crazy, but they're finding that it's working, and they're trying to figure out if this will work with people. We don't know that yet. The research hasn't really concluded that yet, but keep your eyes and ears open for that application of xylitol. This is amazing to me. Xylitol is being used in chronic wound clinics, and we've just recently gotten more and more word about this. Dr. Randy Walcott, who you see there on the screen, is a bacterial biofilm wound specialist, and he's in the business of amputations. That's what he does. He will watch these chronic wounds, treat them, nothing seems to work, and then he ends up cutting limbs off. He has started to bandage those chronic wounds with xylitol and lactoferrin. And he's noticing that these wounds are completely closing in about 6 weeks, and he can confidently look in his patient's eyes and tell them he's 80% certain their wound is going to heal. They're using the straight-up xylitol sugar, okay, and putting that on the wound. I think they mix it with a little bit of water, make a paste. They also add the lactoferrin. So in an infectious biofilm, the Streptococcus strain of bacteria are maintaining that biofilm. They're the ringleader. They're the ones that's directing all the other bacteria as to what to do in the biofilm. The xylitol shuts those guys down. The lactoferrin is a natural substance found in our tears, our breast milk, and our saliva, and it's very healing. So when they add the lactoferrin, that aids in the healing of these chronic wounds. And you can look up Dr. Randy Walcott on the internet. This I had learned about 3 years ago when I read Dr. Jones, who again is the inventor of the nasal spray. I read his book, and he was talking about using xylitol for the treatment of acne. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This sounds too good to be true. We have a daughter that was a chronic acne sufferer, and we'd tried everything else humanly possible, antibiotics, birth control pills, Proactive, you name it, we'd tried it, and we'd spent a ton of money. I'm like, you know what, it can't hurt. Put sugar on the top of your face, it can't hurt. If it doesn't help, we won't do it anymore. So Dr. Jones says to add for every 4 ounces of liquid face wash, 1 tablespoon of xylitol granules. Mix it up in the bottle, wash your face with it twice a day. And I'll be darned if it did not clear up our daughter's acne. The longer she used it, the better her acne responded. I did not have the presence of mind to take any photos because I didn't think it was going to work. However, our daughter's best friend, Annie, I did take pictures of her. So I took the picture on the left in the middle of July last summer and the picture on the right in October of last year. And what Annie was noticing is that her active acne was getting less and her scarring was getting less noticeable. And her face was incredibly smooth, and when she put her makeup on, no one could tell that there was any scarring anymore. We also have dental professionals. There's a few big speakers on the speaker circuit that are using the mouthwash for an astringent. They're using it on rosacea. And they keep emailing me and calling me and saying, Angie, we cannot believe the way this stuff works. So that's really, you know, all of the things that we're kind of looking to xylitol for at this point that are non-dental. We're going to spend a little bit of the rest of the time here talking more about dental things. And we're going to talk for the next few minutes about some research. Xylitol has been the subject of more than 2,500 clinical and lab studies that have clearly revealed its health-promoting benefits. As we've been talking, you can see that it's not only dentistry that's looking to the xylitol for some benefits. And I think that anytime there's several groups of different kinds of people looking at something, that gives it more credibility. There is a great body of research on the dental side of things. If anyone is interested in seeing a list of research, I have a 55-page Word document, actually it's a PDF, that I'm willing to send you. I'll give you my email address at the end here. And the list was compiled by Dr. John Peldiak, who's done a ton of work with xylitol, and he has it all categorized out by diabetes and periodontal disease and decay, upper respiratory health. And so you're free to have that if you'd like. You can just let me know. But we're going to talk about more pivotal dental studies over the next few minutes. We know that when we stop eating, we say that we've just all had our lunch, and now we're not eating anything anymore. The pH of the mouth is acidic, and the research shows us that it takes about 20 to 30 minutes for our body in and of itself to bring that pH back up to neutral. So essentially we're having 20 to 30 minutes of demineralization after each time we eat. It's longer than that if we don't have adequate salivary flow. What this group of researchers noted was when they put 100% xylitol sweetened gum into the mouths of their subjects, the pH was raised in 5 minutes. And in my clinical mind, it's like, oh my gosh, if I can go from 20 to 30 minutes of demineralization going on after each time I eat to just 5 if I use xylitol gum, that goes a long way in fighting tooth decay. And it's a lot easier for our patients, for the most part, for them to chew gum or suck on some mints after they eat rather than taking their toothbrush and go to the bathroom and brush. I always will make the joke that the only people in the bathroom after eating, brushing their teeth out in public, are dental professionals. Even though we tell people all the time to brush after they eat, people just typically don't do it. But they will be more apt to put some gum or mints in their mouth. We know that xylitol reduces existing plaque levels on the teeth and reduces the number of cariogenic bacteria in the mouth. This group noted that with the 100% xylitol sweetened gum is where they got the most dramatic decrease in the plaque and the cariogenic bacteria. When they had a gum that had both xylitol and sorbitol as a sweetener, they didn't get as dramatic of an effect, and that's because some of the bacteria by chance get the sorbitol, they can use it as a food source, and they can have secretions. Some of the bacteria by chance get the xylitol. they can't digest the xylitol and they don't have secretion, so you don't get as dramatic of an effect. When they had a 100% sorbitol sweetened product, the plaque and the carcinogenic bacteria actually increased. This is one of the most pivotal studies done in dentistry with xylitol. It was done at the University of Turku in Finland. It was a difficult study to do, and it was expensive. What they did is they had two groups of people, about 200 people in each group. One group was supplied a diet for 25 months that was only sweetened with sugar. You can see why this was difficult. The other group was supplied a diet that was only sweetened with xylitol for 25 months. And what the researchers were looking at is new decay. They noted that the sugar-consuming group, their new decay rates skyrocketed, while the xylitol-consuming group, their new decay rate was nearly eradicated. And they were really excited about that. But it didn't take them long to figure out that most people aren't going to do this. Most people are not going to have 67 grams of xylitol a day, and most people are not going to use xylitol as their only sweetener. So they did a subsequent study. What they did in that study is allow other sugars in the diet and give the subjects 1/10 of the amount of xylitol that they had in this study, which came in at 6.7 grams of xylitol a day. They noted a near eradication of tooth decay. So what they concluded is that it's not necessary to transfer out all the sugar in your diet, and it's not necessary to have high levels of xylitol to improve dental health. This is a group out of Hungary that looked at what was better at reducing new carious lesions. Was it fluoride or was it xylitol? Again, we like fluoride in dentistry typically. Most of us like fluoride. Fluoride has a mechanism of action that can actually help stop the demineralization process. We get that. We know that. But something has to be started with the enamel before the fluoride will help. In the instance of the xylitol, we're kind of backing up the bus, and we're really practicing minimally invasive dentistry because we're preventing something from happening in the first place and not then relying on something to fix it before it goes any further. Good for us in dentistry is that we can use xylitol and fluoride very well together. This group wanted to know how many times a day do we need to have xylitol in the mouth, and they discovered that at 3 exposures a day, the bacteria is beginning to slide off the teeth. Subsequent study found that at 5 exposures a day, the bacteria is unable to stick to the teeth in the first place. So we call that another pivotal study done by the two gentlemen you see there on the screen. One thing that I get to do as a xylitol educator is hang out with the researchers for about a week every other year, and I get to learn right from them. The last time we were together was in February of this year, and I was able to share my research that I did with elders in nursing homes, and so that was pretty cool that I got to present with these people and learn right from them again. What these two guys did was they took the University of Michigan Dental School students to Belize City, and they worked with 1,277 fourth graders, and they divided those fourth graders into 4 groups. And over 40 months, each group chewed a different kind of chewing gum. What the University of Michigan Dental School students noted was that the children who chewed the 100% xylitol sweetened gum experienced the most dramatic decrease in tooth decay, which was pretty cool. I think, though, even cooler than that is when Dr. Peter Milgram took the University of Washington Dental School students back to Belize City 5 years after the first group was done, and they looked at these children again. All of the gum chewing had stopped, and it had been done for 5 years. What the students noted was that the kids in the xylitol group had over 70% less tooth decay than the kids in the other groups. 5 years later. what they concluded is that the xylitol changes the microflora of the mouth and makes the mouth a place where the strep mutans just cannot live. So there is a long-lasting effect of the xylitol once we grow out a healthier biofilm. And I think that is very cool.
That has very big implications. As you know, Angie, and a lot of our viewers do, we have a foundation, Climb for a Cause and Smile Tree, which funds oral health education and treatment projects overseas. And more than once it has occurred to me how great it would be if we could introduce this. The challenge, and my assumption had been that the only way for any lasting benefit is to continue to provide the children in these countries with xylitol, and we didn't know if that could be done in a cost-effective way. If what you're suggesting is that they really just need to get kind of zapped with it, but with almost like a prescription, and that there's lasting benefit, that's really exciting, and I hope we can talk more about that soon.
It is really exciting. The researchers don't really have an exact, they don't say, okay, so if you do a regimen for 12 months, you can stop and you're going to be protected for X amount of time. They haven't gotten that far yet. But again, for 40 months, it seemed, 40 months, which I know is a long time, but it may be even, 24 months. We don't really know yet. But there does seem to be a long-lasting effect. And what we're going to talk about next really will really help as well with that population, because we know that children aren't born with strep mutans in their mouths. We give them to them. They're primary care providers because we like to kiss them on the lips and we like to share spoons and straws. And what Dr. Soderling wanted to know is, could xylitol used by the mother reduce that transmission of the strep mutans to their babies, to their children? And so she had moms use xylitol gum from the time the child was 3 months old till the time the child was 24 months old. So about 19 months the mother used xylitol. The control groups, the moms, received either fluoride or chlorhexidine varnishes. Now the children never received any intervention. What Dr. Soderling noted was that the number of strep mutans in the children whose moms used the chlorhexidine were 3 times higher than in the children whose mothers used the xylitol. The number of strep mutans in the children whose moms used the fluoride were 5 times higher than in the children whose mothers used the xylitol. What Dr. Soderling concluded is that mothers who use xylitol gum are less likely to transmit harmful strep mutan to their children. And what we know there is then we set up a healthier biofilm in the children. She looked at these children when they were 5 years old, and at the age of 5, the caries rate was 70% lower in the children whose mothers had the xylitol than in the children whose mothers had the fluoride or chlorhexidine. That gives me a whole new way of thinking about how do I keep my children in my practice caries free. We oftentimes will scold the mom. Mom, your child has tooth decay. What we need you to do is cut out the sugar snacks. We need you to brush and floss their teeth better. It's always the mom's fault for not doing something. What about if she's already doing all of those things and she just simply has a high level of strep mutans in her mouth and she's continually giving them to the child? Gives me a whole new train of thought on how to reduce the tooth decay. Also, the Canberra Caries Management by Risk Assessment Guidelines talk about any child who is at mild, moderate, or high risk for severe risk for caries, that they're on a xylitol protocol as well as their caregivers. And that's right in the Canberra guidelines. So good stuff, I think. Were there any other questions, Danny, that came in that you'd like me to address at this point?
I think we should wait. I want to make sure that you can get through all of it. There are some general questions,
Sure.
Nothing that I think should wait until the
Sounds good.
conclusion of your presentation.
Great. So let's go on and talk about who can benefit from xylitol. I really think that there's something here for everybody because, again, as a dental professional, I want everyone to keep the plaque off of their teeth. And we all consume fermentable carbohydrates, and we all typically have strep mutans in our mouth. So there's something here for everyone. I talk with every patient about xylitol at some level. There are 3 main groups of patients that I will target with a specific protocol, however. The first group is the group that we've already been talking about, those with plaque that no matter what I do, the patient just cannot control the plaque. And I think that we all, everybody that's listening can relate to this. We have a patient that comes in with plaque everywhere, and we coach them to brush and floss better. And they come back in 6 months, and they look the same levels of plaque. And what do? We coach them about brushing and flossing again. And it's this cycle, okay? And somehow we magically think that at some point, if we talk to them about using a 45-degree angle with a toothbrush, or if we talk to them about wrapping the floss around their middle fingers and making a C around the tooth, that magically someday that's going to click. I don't really notice that that works. So to me, putting them on a xylitol protocol absolutely help them reduce the plaque. The second group are the moderate, high, and extreme risk caries. I hope that you're all looking to caries risk. That's really where this whole thing is going. We're going to begin talking about risk a lot and treating patients based upon their risk. The medical community is already starting to do this, and we will not follow far behind. Why should we wait to treat something until it's there when we know that someone is likely to get the disease of tooth decay? And the Camber protocols recommend xylitol, and as I mentioned a couple slides ago, is that the children who are at risk are also recommended that their caregivers are on a protocol. The third group is the dry mouth sufferers. When a patient comes in and they talk to us about dry mouth, the clinician's first response to that is, oh my gosh, their teeth are going to decay. And that is a viable concern. However, I've never had a patient sit in my chair that comes in and says, I have dry mouth, I'm afraid my teeth are going to decay. That's our concern, and rightly so, but the patient's concern is that their mouth is just too darn dry. Maybe they're not sleeping through the night because of it. Maybe they're not eating the same kinds of food they once did. The food doesn't taste the same. Their quality of life is their main concern. So our typical response to dry mouth is, again, we want to protect the teeth, so we give them high levels of fluoride, which does nothing to help with dry mouth. Xylitol, so cool, will address both people's concerns because xylitol in and of itself increases salivary flow. Increased salivary flow reduces dry mouth, we know that, and it increases remineralization because we now have more calcium and phosphate available to help remineralize. The xylitol also raises pH, and we know sitting in an acidic pH is going to lead to tooth decay, and a neutral pH reduces caries incidence. So xylitol is about the only thing that I've found that addresses both the clinician and the patient's concerns with dry mouth. We have a lot of our colleagues making such bold statements that maybe if we're not talking about xylitol, we're being a little unethical. And Dr. Catherine Hayes is one of those folks, and she wrote that statement in the Journal of Dental Education already in October of 2001. So again, this is absolutely nothing new. One caution is that not everything that's good for us is good for our pets. And the ASPCA has a list of top 10 foods and ingredients that should never be given to our pets, and you see those on the screen. I would add xylitol to that list. I just had someone yesterday talk to me about their dog or their sister's dog that got xylitol, and now the sister won't use xylitol because she says, if it made my dog sick, it's going to make me sick. Dogs are not humans, and we tend to think that they are. We give them everything, and a lot of these things they should not have. Xylitol in and of itself is not poisonous to our animals. What tends to happen with some animals, and it seems to be the malnourished dogs or dogs that haven't eaten in a very long time, they do not metabolize the xylitol like we do. They're kind of like a strep mutan. That can lead to a severe drop in their insulin. We know a severe enough drop in insulin can lead to death. It is not a poison. Just because your dog gets xylitol does not mean the dog is going to die. This is what my dog did to my xylitol bag. That was a canvas bag zipped shut, and he helped himself to a fair amount of xylitol that day. He was absolutely fine, but you can see he's not malnourished by any means. At another point in time, he had a whole tube of xylitol sweetened toothpaste, and he was absolutely fine. But the recommendation is to keep the xylitol away from your dogs. You do not freely give it to them. If they do get a hold of the xylitol, you want to be sure they're not acting lethargic or acting like they're sick. If so, I would call the vet, and you're probably going to be making a very expensive trip to the veterinarian. So when should we use xylitol? How do we get this incorporated? The current recommendation, depending on what research you read, is to have 6 to 8 grams of xylitol a day or 8 to 10 grams of xylitol a day. Again, it depends on what research you read. We know that teaching our patients to use grams of anything can be confusing to them because they have to get the product, look at a serving size, see how much of what we want them to use is in a serving size, and then do the math and get enough each day. What we've discovered as xylitol educators is that it's easier to teach our patients about exposures to quality xylitol products throughout each day. And quality xylitol products are those products that have xylitol listed as the first ingredient and it's the only sweetener. We're going to talk about those things in just a couple minutes. So, strive for 5. This is easy stuff. What we do is simply switch out whatever toothpaste they're using and whatever mouth rinse they're already using for ones sweetened with xylitol. We ask them to use the toothpaste in the mouth rinse in the morning. If they're using the Spry line of products, that's going to deliver about 2 grams of xylitol in the morning and about 2 grams of xylitol in the night. Then we simply ask them to chew gum for 5 minutes after each meal, 100% xylitol sweetened gum, and then they have another 1.5 grams 3 times a day. So that puts them right in the range for dental health. The recommendation for the 5 minutes, let's talk about that for a minute. When you're chewing a 100% xylitol sweetened gum, the flavor will be gone in about 5 minutes. That's because the xylitol is a natural sweetener. It doesn't hang around very long. There's no artificial sweeteners in those products keeping the flavor going. You will also notice that after about 5 minutes, a 100% xylitol sweetened gum gets a little rubbery. That also is okay because there's no artificial ingredients in these products keeping the gum soft. So I coach my patients that the xylitol gum is therapeutic, not recreational. We do it for a reason, and doing it for striving for 5 exposures each day will improve dental health. I spent the first 5 years of my 30-year dental career in the United States Navy in the dental corps. And our whole mission in any of the dental corps and any of the armed services is to keep our young men and women dentally deployable. What that means is no active tooth decay and no active periodontal disease. And we need to hold those young men and women to a 98% readiness rate. That's a huge mission. What we know is that we send our young men and women away dentally healthy, and oftentimes we bring them home dentally a mess. They have bigger fish to fry than brushing and flossing their teeth, and they have no access to care. So what the military has done is, if you look at the picture here, these are all the ingredients of an MRE, which if you've never seen or had the opportunity to taste an MRE, if you ever get the opportunity, I encourage you to do it. They're not all that hot. I think they should do it so that they can really understand what these guys and girls are eating when they're gone.
Appreciate their sacrifice, right?
That's right. Our daughter is an Army officer. She's stationed in Korea, and so I've had the opportunity to see how they make these things and to taste them, and oh my gosh, I feel so bad. But anyway, so they put 2 pieces down there on the lower right-hand side of the screen, 2 pieces of 100% xylitol sweetened gum in every MRE. And what they know is that they're bringing our young men and women home more dentally healthy. And they are also teaching them about xylitol. This is a poster that was actually hanging in Afghanistan, and it was brought home by our xylitol educator in Florida. Her son is a Marine, and he's done 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he brought this home for his mom. So she could see they're teaching them about xylitol. And you can see it teaches them to, in addition to your normal stuff, chew xylitol gum 3 to 5 times a day after your meals or snack, to protect your teeth from cavities. And xylitol is a natural sugar, all the things that we've just talked about, and that xylitol is included in their MRE. And I just think this speaks volumes for xylitol.
Yep.
Okay, so a lot of people are scared away from xylitol because they hear of these awful GI effects. I will tell you that in my experience, look at the last bullet there. When I put my patients on a xylitol protocol, the amounts that we just talked about, strive for 5 exposures a day to about 1 gram to 2 grams each time. Most people do not have any side effects. If they do, I need to look at a couple of things. I need to look at what product they're using. Typically, the product that they're using will contain sorbitol. Sorbitol is more of a culprit of these GI effects than the xylitol is. Once I clean their products up, they typically are better. If they still aren't, though, what I will do is say, okay, we're going to do 2 pieces of gum for 3 days, then we're going to do 3 pieces of gum for 3 days, and we're going to work them up to the dosage. The reason that some people will have issues is because xylitol is digested as a fiber. Some of us, like myself, I could eat a ton of fiber and never have any ill effects. Some of us, though, are super sensitive to fiber. Either way, if you get yourself too much xylitol too fast, your body will adjust in a matter of about a week to 10 days because your body will adjust to the extra what it thinks is fiber. This will typically happen with people who want to use xylitol as their main sweetener. Okay? And again, if you want to do that, you absolutely can do that. You just need to do it slowly and let your body adjust to what, again, it thinks is more fiber. So I would not stay away from xylitol because I hear about GI effects. Even in my nursing home research, we did not have anybody have any troubles, but that population probably could use some help, right?
Yep.
All right. So where should we get good products and what should we be teaching our patients? The first thing that we need to do is look at our labels. We should look for xylitol first, meaning that xylitol should be the first ingredient in the best case scenario. And again, in an even better case scenario, it would be the only sweetener. Those are the best products to improve dental health. Not all products are created equally. We have to understand what we're looking for. So we're going to look at some packages, and we're just going to go down the list and see what is in these products. The icebreakers, ice cubes. Yes, the xylitol is the first ingredient. Good for them. However, there are other sugar alcohols that are feeding the bacteria. You have maltitol syrup. That's a sugar alcohol. Mannitol, that's a sugar alcohol. Maltodextrin, that's a sugar. Then you have aspartame, which is an artificial sugar. Okay? So again, just like the research that we looked at, these other sweeteners, some bacteria by chance will get the xylitol and they can't have secretions, whereas some of the bacteria by chance is going to get the other sweeteners and they can have secretions. So it's kind of a wash. This is a Trident, one of the Trident products. Sorbitol is the first ingredient, xylitol is the third. And if you keep going down the list, there's mannitol, and there's glycerin, that's what keeps it soft. Mannitol and aspartame in that product as well. Okay. You'll also notice that these products will never have consistent ingredients. You can flip a package one day at your grocery store and then 6 months later flip the same package and the ingredient list will have switched up. On this particular pack of Orbit, it's sorbitol, and then there's some aspartame and some mannitol and just a sprinkle of xylitol. On this package, it says 1 gram of sugar alcohol. Well, that's not xylitol. It's not all xylitol. It's all of those sugar alcohols mixed together. Again, not a product that I would look to for improved dental health. And people say, well, what about the ADA seal of approval? The ADA seal of approval does not tell us that they are good levels of xylitol. That's not what that seal of approval means. There are companies doing great products. One of those companies is the Clear company that does the spry line. There are many others as well. If you look at their ingredient lists, you will see xylitol is the first ingredient and the only sweetener. Right now, we have to know where to send our patients to get those kinds of products. And many of you already said during our polls at the beginning that you already know that you need to send your patients to health food stores to find quality products. And right now, the biggest chains that are selling good stuff are the Vitamin Shop and Whole Foods. Also, your little independently owned health food stores are carrying good quality products. If any of you live in a little town like I do, my town is in Wisconsin, and population of about 5,000, and we have a pharmacy in town. Our nearest health food store is about 15 miles away. What I did is just went into my little pharmacy. I did a little learning session about xylitol, told them that I represented the local dental office and that we would like to really have them carry some xylitol products in the store so that we could send our patients right there, and they have the whole spry line on their shelves because of that. It's easy for them to get on board with xylitol products from different companies. So if that's something that anybody would like some assistance with, I can certainly, help you with that. But the main thing is to get your patients the quality xylitol products. Okay? And the people that are doing quality...
I'll go ahead. You know what? This pertains to dry mouth, so I'll save it for a little bit later. But it had to do with actually one listener's work with a pharmacy. We'll defer it.
Okay. No worries, no worries. Companies that are doing xylitol, their product, the ingredient list is not switching up because they do xylitol. That's what they do. That's their main thing, is to improve dental health. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of tidbit, then we're going to take a look at a couple things here yet. But you guys, anybody on the call can receive 1 free CE credit today. In order for you to get that credit, however, I'll need you to fill out an evaluation form so that I can keep track of the CE credits that I give. That's a requirement of the American Academy of Dental Hygiene that we're certified through. I'm certified through. So what you would do is you'd simply email me, and that's at Angie@XylitolEducators.com. I'll send you the form, and I'll tell you how to get it back to me, and I'll email your CE certificate, so you can get some credit for hanging out with me today, which I think is a cool thing. Also, I will, for any of those of you on the call, I will send a free sample baggie. Okay, so again, you can email me or phone me. I'll provide my phone number and let me know that you were on the webinar. I will have an attendee list that I can check that against so that I know you were on the webinar. And give me your address, and I will send a free sample of baggies to you for attending the webinar. If any of you are interested in any gum and mint samples, you can get those through me as your xylitol educator. Or if you're not in my territory, I have xylitol educators that can help you out. Get wholesale pricing on gum samples. Just one other little tidbit. If any of you are using the Sunstar Butler toothbrushes, if you're on their auto ship program, you can always take free product like go-betweens and floss picks, things like that. You can now take spry gum samples from them for free, and that would be something you talk to your Sunstar rep about, but that's kind of cool as well. You guys always receive wholesale pricing which is typically 40% off of retail. And another thank you for being on the webinar. If there's anything you'd like to order over the next week, that will come at an additional 10% off. So that's kind of the offers there. And there is a new program. I know a lot of you are talking to your patients about xylitol. If you do have troubles with them getting xylitol, there is a website that they can go to, and you can have a code. You can give them your code, and they would save 10% off of retail, and their products come right to their door. And there's a way that you can sign up to get a 10% kickback on anything that your patients order online. So that's kind of Clear's way of thanking you for recommending xylitol products. And there are a lot of good products. Again, there's toothpaste. And in your goodie bag, if you would get a goodie bag, there's toothpaste in the sample baggie, little samples. Contains over 25% xylitol. Difficult to get a toothpaste that has more xylitol than the spray. There's also a mouth rinse. There's also a floss coated with xylitol, if you weren't aware of floss. Chewing gums, 100% xylitol sweetened gums, several different flavors, several different packaging options. And there are also mints, several different flavors and packaging options. There is a dental defense kit where all of the products that a patient would need for at least 30 days of striving for 5 is right in the box. I love introducing my patients to xylitol with this kit because everything they need is there and it comes with a protocol. So it's easy for me as a clinician to just get them the stuff. This is the Rain Spray formulated for dry mouth specifically. This is my patient's go-to product for dry mouth. Little Sparks candies. These are like little nerds. 6 of them is 1.5 grams of xylitol. These are yummy. Kids and adults love them.
Yep, this kid loves them.
Aren't they good, Danny?
Yep. I actually I don't have them in the house because they're too good. No, that's not why. Well, we use spray gum a lot.
Yeah.
And I use the sweetener for my coffee in the morning. But what I'm learning from you is that it pays to have at least 3 applications throughout the day. So
absolutely, absolutely, because that's where the magic happens.
I'll put it in my scotch and soda. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. That'll work well. There is a tooth gel. The train of thought here is, again, going back to Dr. Soderling's research, is if we can get the xylitol into the mouths of the children after they eat, then we can create a healthier biofilm. So you can either just put this tooth gel on your finger and smush it in the child's mouth after they eat from the bottle or the breast, or there is a binky. The back end opens up. You could put the gel into the binky. The child sucks the gel out of the binky for 3 to 5 minutes after each feeding, and then you take the binky away. You can also use it for liquid ibuprofen, liquid Tylenol, antibiotics, things like that. For the little bit older children, there is another gel that is strawberry banana flavored, comes with or without this banana brush. Heather Phillips is the hygienist who you see there on the screen, and she had a nephew who was running with his traditional brush, and he fell and it rammed through his soft palate. He nearly died. And so she took the bull by the horns and she said, never again does another family have to go through this if I can help it. So this brush is awesome. It's completely bendable, can go in the dishwasher for cleaning, can go in the freezer for teething. It's an awesome little brush, comes with the strawberry banana tooth gel. And as we've been talking, there is pure xylitol, little single-serve packets for your coffee or your cereal, or 1 or 3 or 5 pound bags. And of course, the nasal spray Clear. It is pronounced clear, even though it's spelt with an X. And it was designed for children, but it really is helpful for all of us at all ages. And you see different packaging options there, but the important thing to note is it's always the same liquid. No matter what bottle you get, the liquid inside is always the same. We have a team of 5 xylitol educators that I manage throughout the country, and depending on where you're at, that would depend on who your xylitol educator is. So if you were in a different area, I can connect you with your xylitol educator. And the cool thing that we do as xylitol educators is conduct these kinds of sessions. I think this is my just over 300th time doing this this presentation. We do them into your office. We can do them if we're close enough. We can come. So if any of you are listening today and your team didn't get to listen, and you would, like to have it live by a xylitol educator, we can get a hold of your educator, have them come to your office, or we can do it over the internet, just like you've done today at your convenience. We're speaking all over the place. And you get 1 CE credit for each session. You guys have just had the 5 W's of xylitol. We do have 3 other sessions that come with CE credit: developing a xylitol protocol, what does pH have to do with it anyway, and the nasal and respiratory benefits of xylitol. All of the course descriptions and objectives of these courses can be found on our website. It's simply xylitoleducators.com. So if you're interested in any other courses from us, you can certainly reach out to us. And I have one final thought before we open this up for questions. Spry tastes great, less fillings. For those of you who are old enough to remember that ad for Miller beer, that's just a play on words. When I teach students, they don't even get this.
Well, I hope Miller doesn't get it. They may come after you.
Well,
Blaine
has already addressed that with them.
Oh, good. No, I think it's great. All right. Well, I want to thank you very sincerely, Angie, for that great presentation and also for the generous offers that you're making to the attendees. And, before we get to the questions and answers, and I can already tell a number of you are not going to get your questions answered because I have to say the ratio of questions to attendees was higher for this presentation than for any presentation we've ever had. And that's a testament. I don't know what it says about dentists because we already confirmed that the majority of attendees were hygienists. So maybe we do know what it says. But hygienists are very engaged and passionate about this, and it really shows. So we'll get to those in a second. Just before, I do want to remind everyone and encourage you to mark your calendars for the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health's 4th annual scientific session, which is entitled The Gateway to Your Health. It will be in St. Louis, beginning on September 26th and concluding September 28th of 2014. And if you're not yet a member, you can join by going to their website. It's aaosh.org. And if you use the promo code BOBRO3102, I'll spell that for you, and it does require a capital B, O-B-R-O-W, 3102. It'll allow you to become an AOSH member for only $199 if you're a dentist or physician, $49 if you're a hygienist, and $25 if you're a student. With that, let's get to some of the questions. Let's see. Well, here's a comment, first of all. That for dry mouth, this viewer says they use a pharmacy compounded xylitol and pilocarpine lollipops. It stimulates saliva for 45 minutes and relieves discomfort. Pilocarpine is a gland-stimulating medication used in Sjogren's disease. Do you want to comment on that, Angie?
Yes, in fact, very good, whoever brought that up. Thank you. I just had the great pleasure of listening to Dr. Brian Novi speak in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, and he is fabulous. And that was the first time that I had heard about that kind of a lollipop, and absolutely, that's what he is talking about. And I actually have a request into him, and it had xylitol, and his has sorbitol in it as well. And I have some questions into him about that, and then also I wanted to know what the, how we would get those compounded. So absolutely, I've heard of that with good stuff.
And here's a question which is a timely one in light of the fact that it's not only Thanksgiving next week, but the first night of Hanukkah. And this gentleman, or actually I don't know if it's a gentleman or a lady, is probably concerned about what they can deliver by way of sweeteners for their children. Are there any kosher xylitol products?
That's a great question, and the products are kosher. However, I know that there becomes a big concern with having the actual seal, the kosher seal on the products. And what I would encourage that person to do is to email me privately, and I have a list of the products that actually have the kosher seal on them. But the products are kosher, but I know that sometimes that doesn't cut it. That you're really looking for.
Cut it. Right. It just depends on the level of kashrut that the person seeks. So that's
correct.
And we had, I think I'd mentioned this other attendee had just mentioned that they use xylitol to prevent transmission of strep bacteria. And I think you commented on that. So here's the question: does xylitol also impact the strains of strep bacteria on the tongue and in the throat? And if so, what would be the best way to deliver xylitol to these tissue surfaces?
Yeah, so great question. So again, if the strep strain is on the tongue, absolutely, it affects the strep strain. And so wherever the strep strain is, that's, it's going to compound that. And so simply putting the xylitol into the mouth is going to, get on the tongue, and it's going to get in the throat because we're swallowing it. You could gargle with the oral rinse if you want to specifically get the oral rinse into the throat specifically. But just by getting the xylitol into the mouth is going to help remove those strep strains wherever they're hiding out.
Very good. Angie, this attendee wants to know, as do I, are there any, other than the GI issues you mentioned, which I think you already said can be addressed in almost every case with just a little bit of patience and care, but are there any contraindications to the use of xylitol?
Not that we know of. Again, it's found in our plants, fruits, and vegetables. We're eating it every day. It's created in our bodies. So we don't really know of any other things other than the early on gastro effects of some loose stools, potentially if you get too much too fast. And again, everybody is a little bit different with that.
Okay. How often do adults need to use the nasal spray to potentially reduce sinusitis?
Oh my gosh, this is such a life-changing administration of xylitol. I cannot tell you how many people we have changed lives with the nasal spray. And so that's a great question. What I do for health is 2 squirts each nostril, morning and night. And I cannot tell you the last time that I was sick, simply because any of the bacteria, the pollutants, the allergens, anything that come into our bodies are coming in through our mouth and our nose. And when we're protecting those 2 areas, those mucous membranes with the xylitol, we just do not get sick. And so it's a great way to remain healthy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's go with, I don't know that you directly answered this question, so let's make sure you do. Are you saying that using xylitol can replace brushing and flossing?
I don't obviously run around and say, oh, don't brush and floss your teeth, okay? So I'm not saying that it replaces that at all. It is an amazing adjunct, okay? So I always still talk to my patients about brushing and flossing, but I think that as a clinician, if something isn't working, meaning one of the instances would be why am I continually just coaching about brushing and flossing when obviously if I've been seeing this patient for 2 years every 6 months and it's not working, I think that I need to switch something up for that patient. One of the things that I have in my tool belt is xylitol, and I know it works very well. Now with my nursing home residents, we know that those guys don't get their teeth brushed very often, if at all, and oftentimes they don't do it themselves. So I have in my research that was just published, I have photos of what we were able to achieve without changing up the brushing and flossing routines and simply adding the xylitol and what that did to the biofilm over a 12-week period of time. So the xylitol in and of itself will help to bust up the biofilm if they're not brushing great.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. What I like about xylitol is that the quote prescription or protocol is always so simple that even I can remember it. But here's somebody that wants to be reminded of the xylitol regimen. The treatment regimen is for treatment of acne, you suggested.
Yes, great question. I get this question a lot. There's a lot of people that are just like turned on to this, like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So Dr. Jones says for every 4 ounces of liquid face wash, you add a tablespoon of xylitol crystals. Now, in my experience, most face washes come in an 8-ounce bottle that I've found. I seriously go to the dollar store and get the cheapest stuff on the shelf. And the bottles are always full, so you can't get the xylitol in the top of the bottle. So I simply dump out a blob, if you will, of the soap into the sink and wash it down the sink so I can get the xylitol in there. So for 8 ounces, you would use 2 tablespoons of xylitol granules, and you just put it in there, shake it up, it'll dissolve, and wash your face twice a day. And if anyone is interested in doing that, I would really, really encourage taking some photos before and like maybe at the 4-week mark, 8-week, and 12-week, because what happens is we forget how it looked in the beginning. And if we have things to compare to, that's a case study, and that's how then we can get research funded, is when we have numerous case studies, and it's super easy.
Excellent point, Angie. So, you know, and there's also a really good baseline so you can see for yourself the progress that you've made, but also helping the research. So, yeah, that's a really good idea, and I would encourage anyone that's going to be trying this for their children or whoever to get those before pictures and save them and share them. I think that's great. You mentioned how ear infections can be prevented, and colds in general, by treating the passages through the nose and the mouth. But do you have any suggestions or any kind of ear spray indicated ever? You know, if you have an infection that perhaps is more, you know, toward the surface of the of the ear?
No, not that I'm aware of. And again, the infections traditionally in upper respiratory infections start in the back of the nose, and so it's not like the infectious bacteria are always hanging out in the eustachian tubes. It comes from the back of the nose. We have a defense mechanism in the nose whereby the nose stays moist, the cilia are doing their job, the cilia are moving the bacteria out, being moved down the digestive tract. Once, though, that we have so many allergens and pollutants that kind of gum up that system, did you know that when you get boogers, that's the first sign that something isn't right and you're probably going to be sick? We should not have boogers because our noses should be moist enough. But we do get bogged down with all this stuff. So the things start in the back of the nose and they transfer then to the sinuses, to the middle ears, to the throat, and potentially the lungs. And so what we really want to do is preventively keep that bacteria from sticking in the back of the nose so it doesn't transfer to the other areas. But at this point in time, no indications of an ear spray.
And it makes sense. I think most of these infections do emanate from the sinuses, the cavities. This might even be a good way to avoid surgery. I wound up having sinus surgery because I was getting sick all the time, and I believed what my ENT shared was that it was basically a breeding ground for infections, but that was because of some like physical obstructions. And indeed, after I got the surgery, my frequency of illness really did drop precipitously. But you know, and I do use the nose spray, so I will say I didn't know about xylitol when I had the surgery, so I know the surgery helped, but you know, I know people have to go in for surgery again too, and my plan is that xylitol is going to help keep me from having to go under the knife for that again, which is great. And I've got a variation here. A number of people asked, I think, understandably, the question, which I'll just pick the one that is at the top of the list here, which is it best to have products in my office or send my patients to health food stores to purchase them?
That's a great question also. It really is an individual thing, okay? So I have a variety of my colleagues that do many, many different things. I hear that there's a lot of doctors, a lot of dentists that don't want to carry product in their office for whatever reason. And the cool thing about xylitol is if you don't carry it in your office, they can get it. Unlike some other things, you know, that are prescription, things like that, they can't just go and pick up. So they can get it. However, you have to really kind of think about, do I have a health food store or a store close to me that's carrying a good line of the products, you know, having things available for my patients, because the patients get frustrated that we tell them to go someplace and then the shelves don't have it. And so then that leads to noncompliance. Also, we know that when we talk to our patients, and if we have something for them to take home with them right then and there, they're more apt to comply rather than having to go and trek to the health food store. So in my mind, we have to think about location of health food store, how likely is my population to seek out that health food store, and how serious am I as a clinician that I want my patients on a xylitol protocol. If you're really serious about it, in my mind, the best way is to have some that you send them home with. And now there is the xybody.com website that we can send patients to with a code, and they can save off of retail. So if you have patients that are online shoppers, depending, again, on your client, on your patient population, you can send them to a website, and I can give you more information about that if you reach out.
And did I hear you say that the practice had the option of receiving a remittance if the person purchasing on this website uses a code that you give the practice?
Yes, so it's a brand new affiliate program. I think it's we have clinicians in 17 states currently that have signed up to be part of the XY Body program. And let me give you, so there's xybody.com, and that's the site that your patients would shop from, okay? There is a site that you can get more information about that affiliate program. It's xybody.com/professionals. And that will tell you about the affiliate program. And again, if you would like to sign up to get a code, anything like that, I can assist you with that process. But yes, you would get a 10% cash back for anything that your patients ordered online. And it's loaded onto a debit card that you can use for staff lunches or wherever you want for whatever you want.
That's great. And that's kind of the best of both worlds, because then the practice doesn't need to maintain any inventory. They can have samples, and they can just send people to a website, and if they want to use it as a side income generator, they can do that. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. They're helping people get healthy, and they probably wouldn't be there was it not for their efforts. But of course, that's the choice for the practitioner to make.
Correct. Yeah.
Excellent.
It's just an alternate. It's just an option, and and so there's all kinds of options. You can just have the samples to hand out, or you can have product in your office to sell, or you can send to the health food store, or you can be part of XY Body and get a kickback, and so there's all kinds of cool options.
This is good. I want to thank you again, Angie, very much. Again, it was a really terrific presentation, and as evidenced by the engagement of the audience, I know I'm not alone in that belief. I want to thank Equation for underwriting this event as well. And in December, we're going to be taking a break. And then in January, Practice Perfection kicks off its 2014 curriculum with a presentation by Dr. Kim Cooch, founder of CaryFree and CEO of Oral Biotech, whose presentation on caries risk assessment and prevention takes place on Wednesday, January 8th at 6 p.m. Central Time, and is also was made reference to by Angie earlier when she talked about Canberra. So they're very, very much in alignment here, and I hope that you'll all not miss that presentation. In the meantime, this is Danny Bobrow, thanking you for your commitment to